and welcome to our webinar brought to you by BBC Global Services, your go-to source for HIPAA-compliant healthcare virtual assistants. I'm your host, Nathan Bush. In each show, we bring to you practitioners, healthcare clinic providers, and experts to discuss the challenges and opportunities you face within your healthcare clinic and practice. Now, we set out on this show to ask this question: how can healthcare practitioners reclaim their time and focus on what matters most? Your patients. And this show is the answer to that question. So sit back, grab your cup of coffee, and let's have our coffee talk, because today we're diving into a topic that's top of mind for many in the industry. I know that because we're heading into 2024 right now. And that is 3 rampant problems your clinic will face in 2024. It's a subject that we just can't avoid. And I'm honored today to have Dr. Tony Choi with us today. Ophthalmologist, clinic owner, former officer in the Army, and he's joining us to shed some light on your 2024. Dr. Choi brings 11 years of experience in ophthalmology and running clinics, and we're excited to tap into that knowledge. Hi, Dr. Choi. How are you?
Hello. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, man, I'm so excited to have you with us. You're a client of BBC Global Services, and in full disclosure, we really appreciate your business. So thank you for agreeing to do the show with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I was looking a little bit into your history, and we were talking a little bit before the show, and I had found out that you had kind of moved all over the place. Tell us a little bit about who Dr. Choi is and kind of your journey on how you ended up as an ophthalmologist in New York.
Yeah, so I grew up in New York, and I did most of my training in New York. But once I left New York to finish my fellowship in glaucoma to Philadelphia, I decided to make the leap to join the Army, and that kind of started my journey across the country. Army shipped me out to Texas for training, then Hawaii for duty station. Then had various stints in different settings of employment, private practice, and a large kind of setting, group setting like Kaiser. And then the gravitational pull of family and friends kind of was too strong to kind of deny, and thus came back, brought our family back to New York. Once we came back, COVID had some impact in our lives, where the employment that I had, they shut down our division. And so kind of started my journey to private practice. And here I am 2+ years in, working hard to build the practice.
Yeah, for sure. We can definitely tell it on our side. So tell us, Dr. Choi, a little bit about your primary focus in your clinics, so that if there are MDs out there that are watching this, they can make a determination if, BBC Global is a good fit for their organization, or at least they'll know specifically what your practice focuses on.
Yeah, so I'm a glaucoma fellowship trained ophthalmologist, and our practice mainly is a comprehensive ophthalmology practice, administering medical and surgical treatment for ophthalmic conditions. But because of my subspecialty training, glaucoma is a subset of the patient population that I treat here in New York, and it's a area that is burgeoning steadily.
Yeah, for sure. So that brings us, since you said emerging and what's going on in the industry, I want to kind of jump right into the topic of today so everybody gets best use of their time. Looking ahead, what do you think are the top 3 challenges that you foresee facing clinics in 2024?
Yeah, I mean, I will kind of, I guess, answer that question by starting kind of applying to my current situation. Our practice is kind of a micro practice where we have kind of a low overhead and kind of minimal staff. And I do a lot of kind of the work that is required in administering care to patients. And so for me, as I am finishing up my second full year of private practice in my office, I'm always the overarching theme that I'm trying to kind of balance is growth with maintaining kind of quality of care. And so, there's a few kind of aspects that kind of are critical in kind of maintaining that balance. It's one is kind of hiring kind of good help. Two is kind of managing kind of the rising cost, especially as it relates to overhead for business expenses, especially with inflation kind of that still kind of seem to be tricky to kind of rein in.
Yeah, for sure. Inflation is definitely something that as an organization, as a country, as a team, as a family, we have to definitely figure out how to rein in 2024.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and then also we have to kind of deal with the ever constant decreasing reimbursements, that we're facing from Medicare and the other kind of insurance payers that kind of follow suit. So our overhead rises, but our reimbursement gets slower. That those kind of factors make it challenging to try to kind of spend more and expand and grow the business.
Yeah, I mean, and that was something for those that have followed our webinars and shows that we've done over a period of time. You guys know that I used to be in the hearing industry, and I worked with a practice where we grew from 7 to over 40 something clinics. We had centralized call center services, and that's one of the ways that I came introduced to BBC Global Services, was that we utilized BBC Global Services in order to be able to take incoming and make outgoing patient phone calls with their HIPAA compliant programs and the things that they utilize. It just made sense as we were scaling our operations. And so maybe you don't have an entire call center need, or you're not, growing to 70 different locations. But here, Dr. Choi is telling you he's faced with the same type of problems we just dealt with 40 locations. You're dealing with 1 or 2 locations, and that's okay. You got to look for ways in order to be able to help reduce these costs, to deal with growth, and also to find the right people. I know that can be a challenge sometimes as well. Before we get into finding the right people, though, I would like to talk about the impact of trends and advancements you see in the industry right now, Dr. Choi. How do you see the rapid pace of trends and advancements impacting clinical operations in this 2024 coming year?
Yeah, I think certainly as it relates to kind of patient care, there are things that we need to kind of try to kind of maintain in order to kind of continue to meet the serve people and meet the needs of the people, and that's to maintain good quality outcomes and to be accessible and still be able to be down to earth enough to be able to engage patients and kind of connect with patients in the ever increasing demand to be able to be productive and whatnot. Along those lines, to kind of help with that, there's definitely been a proliferation of reliance upon technology, whether that be AI-based or bot-based kind of tools used to engage with patients and kind of follow up with patients. But as I said before, I think there's no, the connection with patients, that person-to-person kind of connection is a critical aspect of health, administering good healthcare. And so I think it remains a mainstay in kind of balancing, utilizing the growing technology with kind of maintaining kind of that connection with patients.
You actually, because we actually have a relationship with you, we've been working with you for a period of time. And one of the things that we have come to understand through your virtual assistant that you are good at doing is connecting with patients. Your patients have a very good relationship with you. What if you're a clinical owner right now, or a practitioner, you're an ophthalmologist, maybe you're just watching the show because healthcare is just of interest to you. How do you connect with your patient? What do you do so well to connect with patients? I know that, we talked about some things we were going to talk about ahead of the show, but I think that would be very beneficial for the audience to know and understand, because this is something you're really good at doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, you need to, as a doctor, you need to be able to produce good outcomes. So especially being in a subspecialty surgical field, that's a given. But with that baseline, you also have to be able to balance really knowing your patients. So even though I work very hard and try very hard to be efficient with planning out patients' visit before they arrive, and have a kind of a game plan in mind about how I'm going to kind of approach what I anticipate the patient's coming in with. I make sure to focus on getting to know the patient, getting to know about them, whether that be relations to their family, their social situation, or a certain kind of recent event in their life that they've shared with me. I make sure to kind of keep snippets of that in my kind of memory bank so that I can kind of refer to, allude to in future interactions. And patients really appreciate that. I really hear them.
I love that. One of the models that we used to use in the hearing practice in order to be able to pull those notes back up and look at those notes and understand that connection was we used the model forms that was family, occupation, recreation, message, and secondary. And what we meant by that was family was who's in their family, who lives in the area, who's around, what's going on with their family, and we would detail the notes of that. Occupation, what did they do for a living, or what do they currently do for a living, how do they earn their income, then recreation, like what are the hobbies that they like to do, what are some of the sports that they play, like pickleball is real big right now with the senior communities, and so in hearing that was a big thing. People love to talk about their pickleball, and when you could remember that that's their favorite sport and that they love to play that, it meant a lot to them. And then M for message. What did we talk about? What were the things that we covered? What were the notes that we took during the conversation? How important, was it that they were missing certain steps and stuff like that? We would put that in the message. And then secondary was, who was this secondary person that helps them make their healthcare decisions? Because nobody makes decisions alone. We don't live in a vacuum. And if we're relationally focused, we wanted to make sure we understood their primary relationships in their life. And so notes about that secondary was very critical. Do you guys do anything specifically like that inside of your practice system, or how do you keep track of all these different relationships, or are you just a master in your brain and can remember all of your patients that way?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. So there is a function in our electronic medical record system called the sticky notes, and so that is kind of something that doesn't really go into the meat and the heart of the record keeping part of the electronic medical record system, but it is a place for us to essentially kind of doodle and kind of add what we think is relevant or kind of important or will be of use. So we use that function to kind of take notes, if you will, about the patients. But it's mainly about kind of keeping a mental record of kind of the interactions that I've had with patients, so that honestly, and because my office is kind of at the moment a micro practice, about 80-90% of the time when the patients walk in, I know who they are and why they're coming in.
That's awesome. That's awesome. With that said, sticky notes, doing things correctly, doing them by the book, making sure that we're not avoiding regulations, making sure that our practices are up to speed with the most common laws and practices. What healthcare regulations, with them constantly evolving, Dr. Choi, how can clinics better prepare in 2024? What do you think?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of moving parts there, right? And unfortunately, being in the healthcare, we have to deal with the challenging aspect of dealing with insurance companies. They are kind of we are the David and they're the Goliath, and they have manpower. They have a lot of tools at their disposal, and so we're kind of outsized and kind of outmatched. But I think there's still a way to kind of survive, and there's a way to kind of compete with the insurance companies. And I think there's a couple of things that I think my office kind of relies upon to try to kind of deal with that. One of them is kind of having a tight kind of workflow or standard operating procedure. Whereas if there's a common issues, where about 70-80% of the time, the issues that we know we will run into, well, we're going to have a protocol for how we're going to handle those kind of situations. And so being in a small team, effectively constructing one and kind of communicating that to be able to utilize that by everyone uniformly, I think that's kind of a very important way to be able to deal with that. Those kind of things. So and yeah, so utilizing that and kind of utilizing kind of the strengths of kind of all the team members and kind of using those tools that we have available, can help with that. And I, that, yeah, I'll kind of leave it at that because, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, making sure that you have proper practices and protocols and best practices in place definitely help to navigate some of the regulations. Have you ever had a team member, Dr. Choi, that didn't follow your best practices, and how do you handle that?
Yeah, so that brings up important kind of event. The I so my current VA from that was hired through BBC was not my original hire. Unfortunately, the first go around, even though we do our best, every side does their best to try to make sure that we're all good fit. Even though the interview process went well, kind of selection for the candidates amongst a pool of candidates went seemingly well. When kind of it came to the time to kind of really work with each other, it was really not a good fit. And unfortunately, after a couple of months, we had to kind of go our separate ways. Multiple attempts were made to try to remediate kind of the issues that were constantly being noticed, but there was a little resistance, and so we had to kind of sever ties. But thankfully, BBC was great in kind of working with our office to try to find the replacement candidate. We went through the same kind of protocol, and BBC was very great in kind of working with me to make sure that I had ample options in terms of pool of candidates. And after vetting the candidates, we settled on my current VA, Angelo, and he has been my most valuable asset for sure in terms of kind of employee.
That's incredible, Dr. Choi. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that specific aspect about BBC Global Services. They think that the organization is maybe just a matchmaker, or they try to pair somebody in the Philippines with somebody in the US, and that's simply not the case. They're an international staffing agency, and they have a managerial backbone that's designed to identify issues, handle those properly, build a culture within the BBC Global team and network so that we have synergistic things happening, that people can achieve the goals that you set out within your specific, we call them campaigns, within your campaign. And so if things aren't going well, there's also a managerial backbone that's there to have conversations, work through that specific employee. Because look, people are people. There's no way in the world to understand 100% of people. In fact, that's why I think in the United States, the divorce rates are way over 50% at this point, right? Because relationships are difficult. They're difficult to navigate and difficult to work out. But what's cool is that you don't just have one relationship with BBC Global. You have a relationship with your staff member that works directly for your clinic. You have a relationship with your supervisor. You have a relationship with the team that's here to support those guys. And so we want to make sure that the experience that you're having as a client is not just one of, okay, here's your employee and then we're out. It's not like a staffing agency where they give you somebody and good luck. It's actually a supportive network and resource for you as an organization. It's above and beyond the staff member. There's daily reports that come out to you. There's the managerial staffing aspect. And then there's the augmented leadership model where you're allowed to lead your employee the same way you would an internal staff member. Mm-hmm. And so by building that culture, by building those things in, you not only get the retention of the employee from a large organization like BBC Global Services, but you get the support of a large organization as your organization tries to scale and staff up. That's one of the things that we loved whenever I was first going through our selection process with BBC. But I think it's more importantly that we talk about patient care. Mm-hmm. And so because patient care, engagement and retention is a big thing in patient care. And you can tell whether your employees are doing a great job by your ability to engage and retain patients. So I would like to just talk a little bit about, because you're really good at this, what strategies do you believe will be key in enhancing patient engagement and retention in the face of these specific challenges in 2024 that we've talked about?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes. Part of the answer goes back to kind of what I had mentioned before. Certainly, I think maintaining good outcomes, especially as it relates to ophthalmology. But I think balancing kind of utilizing kind of the available tools to, especially as it relates to kind of technology, especially when you have a setup such as ours where it is kind of minimal kind of personnel, where a person wears multiple hats at different points during the day. And but also kind of making sure to kind of exercise professionalism and human and human the human touch that is really kind of something that technology or anything else can't really kind of replace. And so I try to kind of model that, and I ask kind of my staff to kind of practice that as well. And Angelo, my VA, he does a great job of that because Angelo wears multiple hats, as I had mentioned, like everyone in the office does. And I can't tell you how many times when patients of mine who've engaged with Angelo, they routinely compliment what a wonderful experience it was interacting with my staff. So, yeah, I think those are the key factors.
Yeah, it really sounds like a HIPAA compliant healthcare virtual assistant is part of your solution for those challenges, then. And so I would like to ask you about this. Can you share how implementing this virtual assistant, this healthcare virtual assistant in your clinic, has helped you address similar challenges to those patient interactions and retention now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'll to share specifically about kind of my experience with my VA, Angelo. I call him kind of the Swiss Army knife. He is somebody who really is able to be very flexible and adaptable, and he's also very hardworking, kind human being, and learns quickly. And so some of the roles that he functions are as follows. Some days he will be my receptionist due to the proliferation of technology with my phone, faxes, my patient engagement tools, my electronic medical records in the cloud. Even though Angelo is in the Philippines and we're in the States, he's able to act the role of somebody who's actually physically here. And so he is on days where I'm actually in clinic by myself seeing patients. Angelo is able to man the phone and kind of work the administrative aspect of it while they focus on patient care. And on days when my other staff is here, he is able to kind of fall back and work in the background, checking eligibilities for patients' insurances, assessing balances, and following up on claims with insurances, and working on faxes, referral coordination, surgical sign-up coordinations, etc. So he's able to be front and center and able to kind of work by falling back into the background. And lastly, he's also been kind of my problem solver. One of the things that kind of an example it would be we had this issue with insurance companies bombarding our communication, whether it be via fax or phone, about requests for medical records so that they could review and kind of see if there was opportunities to change coding so that they could be reimbursed even higher as it relates to specifically Medicare Advantage plans. Well, these people are very persistent and they're very motivated to do so. But when you're getting 20, 30 faxes, in a month about the same different number of chart requests, and to be able to kind of organize that and to be able to kind of make sure that those things go out in a organized fashion, very challenging on top of kind of managing everything else, especially focusing on patient care. Well, I tasked Angelo with that, and he came up with a tremendous system using the Google version of Excel sheet to keep track of all those requests and to be able to kind of submit those records in a timely fashion. So that was a tremendous feat in my mind.
It's always great when you work with an employee that can think independently and kind of not make you the problem solver of every single issue all the time in the organization. And I think that that's one of the great things about, finding the right hire, finding the right person within your organization to work with you. I like to tell my team that works with me, like, this is yours, you own it, you're the boss of this. If I'm missing something, you need to tell me, like, let me know, because this is not what I want to keep up with. I want you to be the one to keep up with this. And so that brings us to the conversation about starting with a virtual assistant. If you're considering starting with a virtual assistant, you don't have a healthcare virtual assistant yet, Dr. Choi, what advice would you give to other healthcare professionals about integrating a new team member like this healthcare virtual assistant into their practice? Because you've done a great job with this.
Yeah, I think obviously, like many things, there's more than one way to do it. For me, I'll just kind of share about how I went about it. For me, I wanted somebody with certain characteristics. For me, some people, whereas other people might have kind of prioritized experience in the medical field, so as to not have to maybe teach as much. For me, I prioritize somebody who was willing to come with kind of a humble spirit, willing to kind of be teachable and kind of moldable, and who was going to be able to have a strong background in relationally. So that's kind of what I focused on. And as far as kind of finding what you're looking for, I think BBC did a great job of providing me with many different candidates for different backgrounds, one with healthcare experience and ones without. And I ended up going with Angelo, who did not come from any healthcare background, but a lot of customer service kind of background. And during the interview process, I really kind of got the impression that he was a really relational person and that he was willing to learn and be able to kind of learn fast. And so that's how I kind of ended up going with Angelo. And he turned out to be exactly kind of what I had hoped for him.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds exactly like the perfect selection process. Maybe your clinic's different. Maybe, you choose people differently, but Dr. Choi laid out for you kind of what he looks for. And that's a key nugget. If you're looking to recruit, whether it's a healthcare virtual assistant and onboard people onto your team, Dr. Choi looks for people who they like to learn, they pick up on things quickly, and people who have customer service in their background. And those two things have been very impactful for him. Remember, we gave him people that had medical background and people who did not. And he chose Angelo, who's been fantastic for him, who did not have healthcare in their background. And so I just want to make sure that, if you're watching this right now or watching on replay, that you have an understanding that it is okay that people don't have healthcare experience if you're looking for the right virtual assistant. You got to look for the right person for the right role. And people who can learn quickly and people who have great customer service skills, depending on what you have them doing in your clinic, those two things are imperative. So I appreciate that bit of advice, Dr. Choi. I got two major questions left. We're at 30 minutes right now. I want to be honorable of everybody's time. We like to keep these things around 30 minutes. So, Dr. Choi, I'd like to ask you this question, and then we'll close out. What proactive approaches are you taking in your clinic to prepare for 2024?
Yeah, well, definitely trying to be cognizant of the growth that we are experiencing, especially with Angelo, what I consider Angelo to be fully trained. And as we shore up our kind of workflow and kind of maintain our roster of patients who regularly come to our office for care. I think certainly I need to continue to focus on kind of growing the base that we have, of foundation that we have established. And so I will continue to look for opportunities to add kind of organic pieces, whether that be technologically related, whether that be more kind of staffing kind of related. What specifically, concretely, I'm kind of just evaluating different options. So I can't say I've committed to specific kind of ways that I'm going to kind of implement that kind of idea yet.
Yeah, no, that's totally understandable. We're coming at the end of the year. This is the time where we plan all those things out. This is where we evaluate these different options. And like you talked about over the course of this interview so far, patient care is something that's extremely important. Learning and understanding different nuances and ways to remember your patients and care about your patients so that they know that you care about them independently, whether you use the forms method or whether you use the stickies in your EMR system. However you do it, you want to make sure that you have a good balance of patient care from a technical aspect and a relational aspect. It's important that as these changes come in healthcare, whether that's AI or the changes are coming in technology through equipment in the office, or the changes that are coming through healthcare regulation. Dr. Choi today talked a lot about the importance of having team members that can support those things operationally. Like one of the things you heard from Dr. Choi was he talked about how he had an overwhelming amount of incoming medical record requests from these insurance carriers. And so if that's you and you're looking for a solution to that, like that's where a healthcare virtual assistant is imperative. You got to have somebody that, it doesn't cost your organization thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars every month in order to be able to take care of administrative entry-level tasks. I appreciate Dr. Choi today also talking to us a lot about how you select somebody. You pick somebody that has, at least for what he was doing in his clinic, customer service skills, and that you could clearly identify, and that is willing to learn, and also people who can take the initiative, take the lead, not just sit around and wait for things, but do the job, buy into the organization mission. And so those are things that you can look for in your interview process to see if somebody's going to be a good fit for your practice. And then lastly, it's important that you streamline your operations, that you have processes and procedures in place, that things are documented on how you take things from point A to point B to point C. And if you haven't sat down and thought about it, before you hire a virtual assistant, might it be wise to take the end of this year to plan out what are some of the processes within your clinic that are important to make sure that you're going to be effective and efficient. Now, with all that said, Dr. Choi, as we conclude, what key takeaways would you like our audience to remember about preparing their clinics for 2024?
Well, prepare to be flexible, prepare to be able to pivot, and change is the only constant.
I'll leave you guys with that. Change is the only constant. And if you're looking to make a change with BBC Global Services, go to www.bbcglobalservices.com. And there you'll be prompted by a virtual assistant who will have a messenger on the screen, and you can interact with one of our team members. And you can set up an appointment to talk with somebody from our organization who's skilled at integrating these healthcare virtual assistants within your practice. So go to bbcglobalservices.com and have a conversation with one of our staff members. With it said, thank you very much, Dr. Choi. I appreciate you being on our show. You're an amazing client of ours, and we really appreciate you taking the time to share your wisdom and knowledge with our audience. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys have a good afternoon. Bye.